Hello everyone, this is Theo from Ocean Isle Topic, and today we will be talking about the second class passengers aboard the RMS Titanic. The last video I did was with the third class, and I did pretty good, to be honest. I thought I started a whole bunch, but I didn't, which was surprising to me. But let's get started with today's video. The second class passengers aboard the RMS Titanic. So, let me get my notes. So I'm prepared. Second class on the Titanic, on the RMS Titanic, offered comfortable accommodations. So basically, what we think as comfort is like TV. Nowadays, we think comfort is like watching TV, which is relaxing, or baths and chairs and whatnot, a big house. But in the staterooms, which they were comfortable, some of the comfort they offer was staterooms. In the staterooms, they had couches, beds, which is bunk beds. Because, I have a bunk bed here. See, this is what they kind of would have had. They had tables and whatnot. They had mirrors. They had access to facilities and access to public spaces like the dining room. The dining room is where they ate. Like, they ate their dinner, breakfast, and lunch there. And they also had the smoking room where men went to go smoke. Like you saw in the Titanic movie, which I can't put on a video to show you, but the Titanic movie, the men, after they ate, will always go to the smoking room to smoke cigars and whatnot. But they also had, and then the second class passengers also had a library to go to. Like, women and children went to the libraries to read or write. To wherever they need to write to. Like, they could write to here in the United States, write back home to England to say how well the trip went, and they always can go take it up to the wireless room or hand it to a steward to do it. And they always, which I can get to the wireless people later. That's what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to go from the first class, next video is going to be first class, the video after that's crew, and whatnot. Let's continue with this one. They also had a promenade deck, which I can show you where the promenade deck they had. It wasn't very big compared to the first class. The second class passengers, had their promenade deck around this area, around the fourth funnel, and a little bit under it. That's where the second class would have their promenade deck. Like, for example, third will have it here in the poop deck, these two places. And the third would also have it here in the well deck. But I already did that for third, so I knew, of course you guys already knew that. Let's continue. While not as luxurious as first class, because you know how luxurious first class was on the Titanic. Well, second class had comfortable and enjoyable experience for many passengers. So basically, second class was basically first class in many ships in the same, not the same year the Titanic was built, but earlier on. Like, for example, the Oceanic. Second class on Titanic was basically first class on the Oceanic. Which the Oceanic is basically another White Star liner. Sorry, but let's continue with that. Staterooms, let's talk about the staterooms. Some second class staterooms were typically equipped with bunk beds, like I was talking about here. Got a bunk bed. That would count. That's what they would have had. Kind of would have had. They wouldn't be metal like mine is. They would be wood. Or another type of thing they would build it with. I most likely think it's wood. They also had mirrors. They had shared mirrors and were often separated by male and female. So basically, male and female would have separated mirrors and sinks. So male would have their own, and female had theirs. Not saying anything bad, of course, but that was the way it was back then. Let's talk about shared bathrooms. Yes, the bathrooms were shared among all second-class passengers. So among all the 350 so on second-class passengers, they had shared bathrooms. So basically, public bathrooms. They had to share the sink. They had to share. Sorry, that was my cat trying to mess with me. they had to share the toilets and everything. Men had their own public stalls for second class, and women had their own. Like I was talking about for mirrors and sinks. Sorry, I had to think for a minute. And then, so they would, but if they wanted to take baths for men and women on the Titanic for second class, they had to ask a steward. If the steward said the okay, they will choose a time to take a bath, and they will take a bath. But there's only 2 baths aboard for second class, so for 350 passengers, that would have been a whole crap ton of. Yeah, it's gonna be a whole crap ton of people taking a bath during the whole voyage. Most people that couldn't take a bath because there's only 2 bathtubs, like I was talking about, not to be rude or anything, but nowadays we would have called it they stinked. They would have stunk. But people didn't think that. They always wore perfume back then and all that and cologne. So that was kind of what they had to do because they didn't have much baths in the ship. On the ocean liner, not the ship. Well, technically it is a ship, it's an ocean liner. So let's talk about the public spaces for second class. Second class passengers had access to the dining rooms, like I was talking about, where they ate. Smoking rooms where they smoked for men. A library for women and children. A spacious promenade deck, which I could show you again if you need me to, but the promenade deck. Sorry, this is my Titanic model. It's a puzzle. It'd be right here. The women in second class and children and everything, everybody would be right here for second class. Right behind the 4th funnel of the RMS Titanic. Well, the 4th, we'll talk about that another time. I was about to say something, but we could say that for another video. And then let's talk about the dining room. The second class dining room could accommodate up to 2,400 second class passengers. But Titanic only could accommodate, for her size, probably roughly around 400 second class. But she could accommodate, if she needed to, 2,400 people in the second class. Dining room. There we go. But yeah, that's where they ate and all that. They also had a pianist, which is one of the band members. They would provide them entertainment. They would, like, for example, if this passenger would like a song they would like to hear, they can ask the pianist and he would play it. Also, he had his own songbook too, if he didn't, nobody asked him to play one. Let's talk about the smoking room. The smoking room was decorated in Louis the 16th style, and featured specially designed linoleum tiles. Like for third class, they would have salmon pink. For second class, I believe they would have had either red, white, which is red and white tiles, which is kind of like a flower in the middle, or they would have blue, red, and blue, red tiles with the flower in the middle, like they did on the Titanic movie. But some of the first class areas in the Titanic movie were carpeted for some odd reason. But yeah, we're not going to get into all of that business. Let's talk about the library. Afternoon tea and coffee were served in the library. Second class passengers, which is a different part, second class passengers were prominently members of the middle class. So for me, I would be close, for my paycheck or pay stuff, I'll be in the middle class or close to third, for example. If I had the money, I do have the money because I get a check every month. It's called live paycheck by paycheck, but we would be considered middle class in society here today, or I would be, and many of whom were immigrated to the United States. So basically, like, for example, I'll name off one passenger who would be immigrated to the United States. Ethel Hart's family. They would be immigrating to the United States, with her father opening a tobacco shop, I think, in North Dakota. But, like, and there's other people, if I was on the Titanic, I would be going home, which is the United States is my home. I live in Missouri. But many passengers back then could have went to Missouri, they could have went to Washington, they could have went to West Virginia, they could have went anywhere. Sorry, I scratched my head, but, you know. And let's go to, well, you know, multiple second-class survivors. So, including Lawrence Beasley, which you all know. He was in the 1953, tried to go down with the Titanic in the 1953 movie, not called The Night to Remember. They were sinking that ship again in the movie, but it wasn't the actual ship, it was a model. He tried sliding down it, and he was the one that wanted to go down with the, try to get the horrific memory again, but no, they didn't let him. Sorry. That's just a little story for that. And then there was Eva Hart in her family, her mom Esther Hart, and her father Benjamin Hart. Like I said, they would be going to immigrating to North Dakota for a tobacco shop. I'm pretty sure. But her father would not end up surviving the sinking. But Eva and her mother would. Some second-class passengers, like the Navartels, the Michel Navartel and his sons, two youngest sons, would be in second class under assumed names. Basically, they didn't put their actual names. Like Michel Navartel wouldn't put his actual name; he put another name. For his wife, wouldn't know who they were aboard the Titanic. But once they found out, when she found out, he didn't come back. Then he thought she would come aboard the Titanic in the next voyage and come to New York with them, so they could have a new fresh start. But as you may know, that one may never happen. Michel Navartel did not survive the sinking, but his boys did. So they called them the Titanic Orphans until their mother found them. Let's talk about the food and drinks on board for second class. Second class passengers enjoyed a variety of, meals, including dishes like baked apples or Quaker oats, so like oatmeal. Like we call that oatmeal today. And Findon haddock, which I have no clue what that is, but that's what I saw and that's what I wrote down for the notes. Afternoon tea and coffee was served in the library. As you may know, like I told you earlier, they were both served in the library. And breakfast was served between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. So they had 2 hours for breakfast to eat for breakfast. And then lunch they had from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. So basically they had an hour and 30 minutes for lunch. And dinner they had 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., which they only had an hour for dinner because the first class will then come in to eat. So they had an hour before, dinner started at 6 for them. They had an hour until 7, and then after that they would have left, and then at 7 they would have. Then 7, the first class would have came in to their own dining room and ate. But the second class were located here. I would say second class were located here. Located here in the stern section, riding around this whole section here, where they were located. Riding around this big section here. That's where the second class would look at this port and starboard side of that area. Well, guys, if you like this video and you want the first class section of this video, not first class section of the video, if you want first class video for the first class passengers, please like and subscribe. And alright, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.